All right, welcome back to another episode of the School of Weird. I have somebody that is such a joy, no pun intended, to be with and to know, and that is, of course, Jessica Janzen, who has joined us. Jessica, what's up?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. We're like, let's just press record because there's some good nuggets happening and we need to share it with the world. So get
That's
it out.
right.
I'm ready to rock. And yes, I hope when you hear my name, you also associate it with joy. I'm always honored and privileged that people would put those to my name and that word in the same sentence.
It's such a beautiful thing, and it's something that I think so many people are desperate for. And so tell us just real quick before we drop deep into this thing, who is Jessica Janzen and how did you get to this journey where your calling now is helping people unlock joy?
Totally. The very high level, like light, like speed of light version, born and raised on a family farm in the middle of Canada, just outside of a town called Winnipeg. Parents are farmers, grandparents were farmers. My dad started it as a first generation farm after my grandpa sold and did missionary work. And then
Did not know that.
yeah. I grew up hating the farm. Like I hated it. I dreamed of
Ooh,
like New York and high heels and a fancy life. And so very much so rebelled and pushed back on it. Went to college, found my way, got a job, broke up with the guy next door that I dated for 4 years, thought I was going to marry. He was like, I don't want to be with you. And I was like, I have $300. I'm moving to Calgary. So it's a 13-hour drive from my hometown in the amazing province of Alberta. And so in
wow.
2006, I moved here, didn't know a soul, nothing lined up. I used my line of credit to pay like my first and last month's rent, like a total idiot. And then had a bunch of different jobs, a bunch of up and downs. Met some incredible kids that I started serving and helping their family. They lived with a rare genetic disease called spinal muscular atrophy. Met my husband at a place of work. I confessed my undying love to him 3 times. He just wanted to be my friend. He also has a crazy journey. That's a whole story
Yeah,
in itself. But he
yeah.
had an insane drug overdose where he should be dead, overdose on meth, and thankfully is here. And then, long story short, we've been married 10 years. We have 3 beautiful kids. And all of the ups and downs and the pain that I've noticed in my life has led me to this purpose, this platform to do what I do. And that's helping people access more joy in the everyday. Like life is guaranteed to throw you some shit show, some hard stuff, but I've definitely found a way that I can bounce back quicker. And my hope is just to share that with others because life is short and it's precious. And if you got a beating heart and breath in your lungs, you're far from done.
Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, so I didn't even realize that you've got some addiction stuff in the
Yeah.
family. You've got some missionary legacy. Very interesting. You know that because on the pre-call we were just kind of chatting, and she was like, "Well, wait a second. Was your family missionaries?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, inner city missionaries." And it's interesting how that all plays into things. And so I guess tell me a little bit about that. Did some of that rub off? Do you feel like in some ways like his legacy is part of what you're doing now
Totally.
in this new format?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say like my grandparents were hardcore missionaries. Like they did Gideon Bible and I think serving other people was always something in our family. My mom is
Yeah.
the most grace-filled, amazing person and said like there's always room for one more. And I love that. And I think you can serve formally, like in a church or in a volunteer position, and it lives in your resume. And I think you can just be a
Yeah.
good human and you can just serve people where it's not documented or it's not like this official thing. It's just like I'm there
Yes.
of service. And I find I go to church now and they're always like, sign up for Dream Team. Like, you got to be on the serve team. And I'm like, I am serving in my own damn way. Also, I swear too
Oh
much.
my
So,
God.
probably
Mhm.
need to make sure that the building doesn't crash down on me. But like, there's ways that we serve. And so, I think having grandparents and my parents that just had a heart to serve and to help others, that is naturally rubbed off. And I know when you're wanting to unlock joy, a huge part of that is serving and helping others. There's something that just lights you up inside that translates and I
Mm.
think changes the posture of your heart when you can help other people and see them find breakthrough. And so it's just become a way of being and how our family shows up and does things.
Look at you. Yeah, I am so deeply passionate about the exact same part of the unlock, right? Is that the true fulfillment, true joy to me, it kind of goes beyond happiness, right? It's something that is not as it's not as fluid as happiness. You know, like happiness is kind of like a roller coaster a bit, and it's fun. And when you're happy, I always tell people like live it up, but you won't stay happy. But joy is this like foundation that you don't go you don't go below, because it's just this constant that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think freedom and happiness play into it, and serenity to a bit. But like joy is this like powerful, powerful force, and it can't be bought. It can't be faked. And I think that's where like people say you can't buy happiness. I think you kind of can buy happiness, but I don't think you can buy joy.
It's like a new pair of shoes. I'm like, that makes me happy. Bam. I love
Yeah,
that.
you can sure as shit buy happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that. It's such an amazing thing that I think so few people realize how limitless the joy waterfall is. Or maybe it's a joy tsunami, but how limitless it is when you tap into it. And the secret is actually, I think, kind of what you're doing. It's the secret is in the unsuspecting space, the space where you're not taking score, the space where it's not categorized as a formalized thing, and it's also not publicized. There's something about that, right? And you know a little bit about my history, and the listeners do as well, as far as being 16 years sober from drugs and alcohol. And getting sober from drugs and alcohol is one thing. Staying sober is the trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I learned, and it's actually kind of created this space I had really lost. So in childhood, you know, I've talked about this. My family did a lot of intermission work.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like that was ingrained. But when I grew up, I was like, I felt like I either had to be all in doing that full time, or I was just going to make money and donate. Like those were the two options.
You're one or the other. There was
And
nothing in between.
right, nothing in between. And that, I think, is the problem with Western civilization thinking. And I know for me, it's been such an amazing surprise that my addiction is what actually gave me back that unlock to joy, which was that it just so happens the same way that you stay sober and unlock the joy tsunami, or what I call now the limitless drug, is helping others, helping them unconditionally. You know, and helping them in a space where it's not for money, not for pay, not for notoriety, and none of that stuff. That's the spiritual coin, I call it.
And that's the piece that I love it. I mean, Impact 11 said it, but it was like, give generously, expect nothing, like keep no score. Because that's true.
That's it.
That's true giving. Like I don't give and I'm like, well, I better get this in return, or they better do
That's
this.
right.
Or like if I do this, then I get that. Like my favorite is when we have a charity. It's in honor of our son, and we asked for silent auction donations. And this one year, a lady donated a $30 gift card. Okay, so pretty like below average in terms of giving, and not like we raised, but in terms of value. And we always share on my Instagram stories, and Instagram is a way that I monetize and build my business. And so you're ripping through things. I'm like, hey, awesome, this gift card from XYZ ABC business. Great, move on. And the person came back and she's like, excuse me, I did not get a long enough shout out. I didn't get my business feature, like, and just ripped us a new one. And then I've got people donating thousands of dollars that ask for nothing. And that's like the purest definition of true giving. Is like, you didn't give because you wanted to support. You gave because you had an expectation that I was going to help your business, save your business, change your business.
Oh my God.
And you're like,
and unfortunately, a lot of giving is that way. And you know, luckily the government has set it up to help a little bit with that, where people can buy sponsorships and all that fun stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the thing. Is so here's my philosophy on that. It's fine to give like that, but expect publicity. Expect what, like a linear transactional type thing. Don't expect what you and I are talking about, which is this like multiplier of fulfillment, multiplier of joy. Don't expect that. It's fine to do it, but don't think it's the same bucket and expect a multiple or this limitless joy tsunami we're going to be talking about here today.
That's the truth right there. I mean, there's a transactional exchange, and then there's like, hey, do you really want to unlock the deep-seated foundational joy? Like literally it oozes out of my pores. You know what I mean? Like where it's just a way of life and a way of being. And that's, I think, where people get hung up.
Yeah. And I think you have to adopt first and foremost, I don't know if it's first, but definitely foremost, this idea of abundance versus scarcity. You have to adopt an abundance mindset to play in this world we're talking about. Because if you're going to give generously and not take score, and you're going to make it about giving first as opposed to taking, you have to live in an abundance mindset that's going to be multiplied versus addition, right? And that takes a level of faith, and you have to play with it, right? Starts off it's blind, and then as you do it more, you realize, wow, this is as strong and literal and real as physical things in the third dimensional world.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to work your way to that point. Once you get there, that's when it becomes limitless.
I think people are so scared because, especially if you don't see it right away. Like I've started, really thinking about Amazon Prime concept. Like people want to Amazon Prime joy to their life. People want to Amazon Prime like, their marriage. We need
instant 2-day delivery. I like it.
Yeah, like it's like if this problem isn't fixed, if my health isn't fixed in 24 hours, what's the fucking point? If I'm not this by then, and because of all these instant services, Instant Cart, Amazon Prime, all of these like making it happen, add to cart, fix the solution. Like I'm like, oh shit, I'm out of gluten-free bread. Add to cart, it'll be here tonight or tomorrow. And I think if we can shift that, and that's one of the things I talk about on stage is like stop going to Amazon Prime, all the hard things in your life, and stop quitting just because you didn't see the transformation and the turnaround in a 24 to 48 hour period. You've been this shitty, this stuck, this depressed for 17 years. It's not going to change in 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. When you think about it, people, everybody wants to use the word, we need to evolve. Like I feel like last year, evolve was in the title of half the conferences or something like that, or like reinvent or evolve with the times or whatever was probably half of the conferences. And one thing that people forget about evolution is just how friggin' long it takes and how much pressure has to be applied to create that over a significant amount of time. It's like, what? And it's like, but everybody uses this word evolve like real loosely. I'm like, are you sure that's what you want to do? You sure you want the transformation? Because you can get it, but it's not what you think. So that's what you do, huh, Jessica? As far as like with companies, when organizations, these associations, when they bring you in, what are they bringing you in for? What's the deal?
They bring me in a lot of times for my energy, because that would be, I would say, one of my superpowers. But the biggest thing is leaning into that wellness space. And I talk about, I heard an agent in a bureau being like, oh my gosh, if I have one more speaker talk about resiliency, I'm going to barf. Like everyone's a resiliency person. And I have, I speak on resiliency because I was like, oh my gosh, joy's too soft. Like joy's not tangible. And I think we're also starting to see the shift in that. And you and I were talking about this authenticity part in our marketing and branding I was like, okay, I'm going to play the game. I'm going to use all the right buzzwords. And I'm like, screw it. I want to be authentic to who I know I am. And the people that want me will want me because they believe in the transformation. Yeah. And if that means I miss out on a lot of opportunities, then it's going to be their loss, not mine. Because I truly know like how I'm credible in the transformation I give. But the biggest thing that I've coined, which I think is a very tangible, real thing, is a resiliency roadmap. It's 4 steps that people can work through, because what I speak on is like, how do we get through the hard times? This is a guarantee in life. And one of the things I always set the stage with, I said, my heart is going to be different than your heart. And Susan's heart and Bob's heart and Frank's heart, everyone's heart is going to be different. I said, what I never do is play the comparison game, because I'm not in your shoes. I'm not living your life. And so my heart up here in Canada, north of the 49th, will look different than Frankie's heart. You've got how many kids? 6? I was like, shit, I got 3. Like, why would I try to compare? You never win that game. And so knowing that we all will encounter hard, how do we bounce back and how do we access joy throughout it? Because where I think people are stuck is in a problem mindset. These are all the things that have gone wrong. These are all the things I haven't accomplished. These are all the things that we're stuck on. And I want to move them from a problem mindset into a possibility mindset. And the secret sauce is 4 steps. It's radical acceptance, knowing you have a choice, leaning in with relentless belief, and then small, consistent action. Like, what I talk about is definitely not rocket science. Like, I'm not taking you to the moon. We're not like redefining the craziest next innovation. We're legit just talking about being
a good. My last podcast with John, when we were talking about how AI is going to reshape human evolution.
Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I'm like, you got to fix your mind, right? So you can show up and do what you got to do in whatever space that is. And if you are landing, rockets on the moon or Jupiter, wherever it is, whatever you're doing, your stay-at-home mom, you're a venture capitalist that might be a complete douchebag. We talked about that before, about how I just labeled you as that. I was like, oh, he's for sure a VC douchebag. And he's not, it turns out, when you actually get to know somebody. And so it's just like these simple shifts. The problem is people don't know the how. And so we really try to
Mm-hmm.
tackle head, heart, and hands in that. And so for me, it's like, what's the neuroscience behind this? Like, what's the factual? How does this actually work? That's definitely plays towards an analytical brain. You know, the heart stuff is, I have a sad story. It absolutely sucks. My kid died. We fought for his life. We fought for treatment. All of it was too late. You know, months after he
Oh,
passes, you know, treatments released, there's medical breakthroughs, kids that were diagnosed at his age. Like there's a little girl in our community that downhill skis. And it was like, it was just like a little too soon that my son got this crazy diagnosis. And so it's like, how do we figure out like that heart piece of it to pull in people's heartstrings saying like, oh, she can overcome hard things. I can overcome it. And then for me, the hand piece, what are the tangible things that you need to do? Again, like this is like, doesn't cost you anything. It's just simple actions that people have to do. But I think we get so bunged up in our head about the crazy thoughts. We get 60,000 of them a day. How do you sort through that so that you can find forward momentum, unlock joy, become resilient in whatever you face?
okay. First of all, two things. One, I want to double click on what you just said about the heart and your son. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. So the podcast I just had with the futurist and
Mhm.
like everything I just said about AI. What if I told you that the majority of our conversation was about the foundational unlock of working through our trauma in
Mm,
order to have any of that? You actually have more in common than you think
mm, mm.
with what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
so I really want to honor what you said about the heart, but I'm writing this down because I'm going to come back because I have something I want to do with you in this as it relates to you understanding that you are more than a resilient speaker and you're even more than joy. And we're going to do that here in a minute. Okay.
Okay. I'm here for it.
After this commercial break. Just kidding. There's no commercials, but in normally this is when Oprah would go to the commercial,
Mhm.
and we're back. So we need to just for a minute honor this because I honestly had forgotten that part. So first off, how old was your son?
So my second born son was born May 2016. Like I'm talking 3 pushes. I went to the hospital. I was like, break my water. I'll tell you when I'm ready to push. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
have this baby. And that's exactly how it went down. Broke my water, 3 pushes. I walked out that same night
Yep.
and was eating pizza and watching, you know, playoff hockey. It was right before the Stanley Cup and my husband's team. So he's like, babe, like, let's go. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of
I
here.
may or may not have. I may or may not have been a part of a almost exact same scenario that you're talking about.
Right?
Definitely insane.
Yeah.
Almost too quick. It's almost too quick.
Well, and we
I
nothing.
may or may not have fainted actually, and they had to do salts. I don't want to distract you. Keep going.
That's a story for that's on the next follow-up episode. Yeah, so like safe,
Yeah.
healthy, no concerns, no issues. And then you know, at the 2 month mark, he goes limp. We in and out of hospitals. And I go through kind of all the details in my book, Bring the Joy, and our journey with our son. But our son gets diagnosed with a rare genetic disease called spinal muscular atrophy. The crazy part about my story is that in 2007, a year after I moved to Calgary, I had quit my job, was looking for a new one. And this was when Calgary's a boom and bust city, oil and gas. You could pick your nose and people would hire you for 50 bucks an hour. Like it was just like, oh, you have a pulse, we'll hire you. And I remember I couldn't find a job. I wasn't getting interviews. I'm like, what's wrong with me? And my girlfriend goes, let's make a pros and cons list of like what you know you want and what you know you don't want. And out of the blue, I said, oh, well, I know I'd never want to work with handicapped kids. They disgust me. And a week later,
Wow. Holy shit.
yeah, I tell this story from the stage because I mean, like you can throw tomatoes at me, you can think all the things about me, but this is, I think we all have some thoughts that we probably don't want to say out loud because they're embarrassing or we're filled with shame or whatever. But
Yeah.
God has a sense of humor. And a week later, I met a little boy
Seriously.
at our church that was in a wheelchair, and his sister is also in a wheelchair. And so I came up to that family, had this nudge, and I said, hey, can I just serve and help your family? Like, I just have this heart. I want to help. I've got free time. And they said, well, when can you start? I
Mm.
said, I don't know, tomorrow. And so for 9 years before my own son gets his diagnosis, I help a family here locally in our city with a rare genetic disease that majority of people that I meet have
Wow.
never heard of. And we had just finished fundraising $44,000 for a wheelchair accessible van because when I would take care of them, the van wouldn't work. It wouldn't even go up the hill. Calgary's hilly. The ramp would break. And so in -40, the kids would be stuck in this van with 400-pound wheelchairs. And I'm like, we got to fix this. So we fix the problem. We
Wow.
get them the new wheelchair. And then my own son, our own son, Lewiston, gets the same diagnosis at 2 months old. And when the doctors delivered
Well,
that,
that was what caught my ear when you said that, because I was like, I had not heard the diagnosis you said earlier in our interview, and then you said that one. I was like, wow, I didn't write it down, but that sounds awfully familiar. So that literally the same exact diagnosis, which is rare, correct?
very rare,
Like, what are the odds of that? The odds are like 1 in a
million,
billion or something.
1 in a
Yeah,
million.
something.
And both parents have to be genetic carriers, and we have no family history of anything in this, our family. So I'm just a rare, fucked up gene mutation. Same with my husband. Our parents got tested. My brothers got tested. No one else in the family has it, because you wanted to then be like, hey, this is a thing in our family. So we're just these rare mutations that happen. We pass on the 0 copy. So when the doctors delivered the news to us, they said, oh, your son has SMA. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Like, wheelchair accessible van. I'm going to get the blue handicap thing. I'm like, I'm getting fast pass at Disney. I'm like, I just finished fundraising for a wheelchair accessible van. Like, I know how to do all this stuff.
At Disney.
Yeah. Well, you do. It's great. There are some perks. Long story short,
No, yeah, that's awesome.
the doctor's looking at me and she's like, holy shit, this woman is clueless. And the pediatric neurologist hands us this sheet of paper and she goes, I'm really sorry, but we actually believe it's SMA type 1. And I'm still like, yeah. Yeah. And she goes, Jessica, Ronnie, there's no cure. There's no treatment. And we actually don't believe that your son will make his first birthday. And our role will just be to keep him comfortable until he passes.
Wow.
And you're just like, okay, not like I was thinking fast pass at Disney and a blue handicap dangle.
Right.
And like that's heavy.
You're like, we can do this. I've already been here, done that. We got this.
Yeah. And then you're just
and then
like,
how long?
shit.
How long?
So we have 4 months with our son. He passed just 3 days shy of his 6-month birthday, in and out of ICU, and trying to fight for treatment. People are like, "We'll give you the private jet. I think there's a treatment in Portugal or maybe in Czech Republic." And people were so good, and we really fought hard. And there was a clinical trial, and he did get access. It was just too late. He had caught and cold, and it's a respiratory thing where once it goes into your lungs and you just don't have the muscle strength. Like you were before when we hopped down, you're like. You live with SMA, that takes muscle strength, like clear your throat.
Yeah.
You can't do that when you have SMA. And literally he had flatlined 1 week before he passed. And I demanded that they bag him because my husband wasn't there. And so they, resuscitated him. It was horrible. And we knew after that, like he was just done his fight. Like we had made a commitment as a couple. We said, this will make us to break us. We're going to let it make us. We made that declaration. And then we said, if Lewiston has fight, we have fight. But when that kid doesn't have fight, like I don't want to just keep surgery and poking holes and trying to artificially keep the kid alive. And so we made that difficult decision as a family to let him go.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So hard is hard, and it absolutely sucks. But
you've had 2 more kids since then?
Yeah. Well, my daughter was 15 months at the time. So I was like in the thick of it. And then
oh my God.
Yeah.
You sort of should have told that part of the story first. 15-month-old? That's the worst part. What the hell?
They were 13 months old when Lewiston was born. So it was crazy. My mom was amazing and really picked up the reins and helped us a lot. Well, we lived in a children's hospice here in Calgary. It's crazy. That's why we raised a lot of money, because we believe in the facility. And then I had 3 years later, after he passed, we had a little healthy baby boy named Hollis. And so we have 3 kids, 2 Earthside, 1 up in heaven. And we started a charity foundation that's raised $2.4 million and counting, to give back to our hospital and then to help families across Canada. Yeah.
Oh, look at you. Well, that's shit. Yeah. So I guess most people that assume one thing about you and then they hear that story, that's kind of hard for them to continue to judge you. It's hard to judge you after that story, right?
And I think there's still people that do judge me, and I'm like, go for it. I don't give 2 shits now what people think about me.
Yeah.
And so think what you want. And I think especially, having an online presence, people will make assumptions of you, and they don't know. They're not sleeping in my bed. They're not paying my bills. They're not living my life. And so I'm very careful and very curated about who's in my front row or sitting at my table.
It's very difficult to do what you do. You're way more vulnerable online than I am, as far as like really just showing it. That is bold, you know,
Yeah.
and people don't realize that the people that don't do that, that just hide behind comments and trolling,
Mhm.
which is the majority, have no idea what it's like, especially because it's not like you're doing it just to be like some sort of weird influencer. You're doing it as part of this calling to help people. And I think sometimes people can't tell the difference anymore, like the trollers, right?
Mm.
And so they don't realize how powerful their words can be when there's somebody who's on the other end of it. I'm sure you've gone through a little bit of that journey, right?
Totally. And I would say 99.9% of my platform is really positive and has avoided a ton of toxicity. I don't talk about, I don't like to have a negative angle. Like, I don't complain about customer service and things publicly. Like, I really try to be like, is this a purposeful conversation and does it make the world better? Then I'm going to have it online. If it isn't, that's between me and my friends. And the odd time, I break those rules and whatever, but people are really good. And the people that are shitty and want to hide behind comments and make fake accounts, I just have chosen now, after I got ripped through the coals in 2020 with a bunch of different stuff. You'll never win that conversation with someone online. So I just won't engage.
Never.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, you want to come to my house and have a cup of coffee and sit in my living room or at my kitchen table with me and have a conversation and talk hard things? I'll do it all day long. But you want to hide behind a
Right.
keyboard, behind a fake account? I will not engage or waste any of my time because life is precious and it's better spent serving and helping other people.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Well, I think that's the right way to do it. Now, okay, before we get into the unlock
Yes.
that I want to do here today,
I
okay?
can't wait. I feel like
What?
I'm free therapy or something from you.
No, it's just coming. It's coming. It's gonna be we're gonna end the show on a bam. So, what the hell happened in 2020? Now, just give me that elevator. What?
Yeah. So, okay, May 25th, 2020, we're supposed to, every year we host my son's birthday party as a birthday party fundraiser. So the world shuts down
Okay.
and it's starting to open up, but we couldn't sell tickets to our fundraiser. So we host an online auction. I go online, social media, a 13-hour Instagram-a-thon. Like, we reach out to next networks of people. Hey, can you come on? Jillian Harris, some hockey players, a bunch of other like incredible people. And we ask people to donate while we entertain them all day because most people are staying at home. We raised $75,000. One of our big donors, like, Jess, your goal was 100K. What are you short? I'm like, I'm short 25. 4 days later, they show up with a check. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd dies. I'm not watching the news that day. I'm not present. I'm not paying attention. A few days later, finally I surfaced. Like, me showing up for 13 hours, like, I would pee in between like these really quick things and people would be feeding me and I'd go back online. So I felt like a Mack truck had hit me. I finally surfaced and I'm like, oh, this guy, George Floyd, there's this stuff. I don't watch the news. I don't like consume news. Anyways,
Sure.
people were like, Jessica doesn't care. She doesn't support Black Lives Matters. And meanwhile, what I had done personally was like, I called my friends and who were Black and I said, hey, I'm checking in. I'm just surfacing. I'm really sorry. Like, took a few days to recover. How you doing? I don't post anything because I'm literally recovering. And the day of my son's
Yeah.
birth is like,
You had no idea like
right. But I
what was
also
gonna
like,
happen next.
yeah, and I'm
Oh.
dealing with my own grief. Long story short, there was this horrible hate page in Calgary that puts me on there and says Jessica is against Black Lives, and like just
Oh.
blasts me. And incredible enough, my platform is really positive. And to this day, I had a friend call and she goes, Jessica, I want you to know that this page is out there. And people are saying some really horrible things about you, none of which are true, and your community knows that.
Yeah,
They've
dude.
been blasting they've been blasting people. Everyone's working to get it down. I don't want you to read it. And I was smart. I didn't read it. And
Mm-hmm.
my followers and my people came to my defense and were like, how dare you? She just raised 100 grand for her kid that died to try and help other people. And again, what I was in alignment was, I knew what I had done and I hadn't shared it publicly. And so, hey, everybody, look at me. I'm doing this thing. Like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to be performative. And I think
Right.
it's a really hard time for influencers. You would call me an influencer if you saw my social media. It was a hard time because people are like, do I post the square? Do I not post the square? Am I doing the thing? Am I not doing the thing? Okay, I got to do this. Like, it was so messy and you could never win. And so, in that getting ripped to shreds, in that getting my name raked through the coals, what I have come to be at peace with is at the end of the day, people in the bleachers and on the outside of my life will say what they want about me. But if I'm in alignment and the people that have a seat at my table can say, hey, you did it well, you did it in a way that is true and authentic to you, and that like I knew that I checked in with the
Mm,
people that mattered, then I'm just not going to buy into
yeah.
the bullshit that's out there. And so that
Wow.
lesson was hard. Mentally, I really struggled because I told myself, I'm like, you're a piece of shit. You're not good enough. You haven't done enough to serve and help other people. You should have done this. And I really went through it. And it's led me to
Wow.
this belief of just knowing that nothing I do will ever please everybody. And that if I'm in alignment with my values, with who I am, with the things that are important, then people will judge, but I'm going to be good with it. And it's that conversation Michelle says, if you can't say it to people's face or in a grocery store or, having a cup of coffee, you probably shouldn't say it. And that helps me check in when I'm
Wow.
talking stuff.
That's unbelievable. I've not had something to that level, but I did have something like that happen as well, where I did a talk actually
Yeah.
for a union, and my heart and my intentions were like so pure, and I won't
Mm,
get into all the details, but it ended up on Reddit, and I it was just it was harsh, and I didn't read it either. My wife read it, and honestly, she was like, it's not as bad as you think, but it's different when it's you.
yeah.
You know, it's just like, and it's the exact opposite of what I'm all about. It turns out there's somebody else named Frank Russo that in the '90s stole millions of dollars from unions, and so half of it is about that I've come from like a legacy of union busters.
Oh,
And
shoot.
I was like, and honestly, I had to Google what that meant because being from Louisiana, like I didn't, we're just not as educated on it. And I think that was the biggest thing I took away from it was like, okay, cool, I want to learn more about this. And I should have known more. I should have learned more going in, but that's part of the learning. But it's so painful for that. It just, I don't know what it is. And I don't care who you are. And I'm somebody that doesn't really care that much about what people think about me
Yeah.
because I've realized the value of loving my weird and
Yes.
loving just like who I am and understanding that everyone is going through the exact same thing. But yeah, there's nothing worse than that when your heart is so intentionally there to literally just help them. Okay, like that was the only reason I was there, and it did this opposite thing. It was like whoa, it's so hard when that happens, and it's not as it's not quite as bad I think as yours, but it's in the same vein of like you were sitting there trying to do this good thing for the kids that still have a shot, and then I mean it's just like wow, it's
Well, and
painful.
again, it's like it's so quick to and easy to judge people, easy to judge celebrities, easy to judge people. Like you meet them for the first time and you
Yeah,
make these assumptions. And some people will share that until you have a heart to heart conversation, with somebody, then see where they're at. And I think the biggest thing is when people question my authenticity and my integrity, those are some of my most important core values. And that just ripped me to shreds. But it also was an incredibly valuable lesson that was really hard to learn, but has served me well. And I felt like, okay,
yeah,
as I grow, more and more people will want to have opinions about your life, about if it's this or if it's that. And so learning to be in
that's
alignment
just
was
part of the deal.
that,
And
yeah.
has your capacity for empathy deepened since that?
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I don't come into anything like half cocked anymore. I mean, for me, what had happened was there was this situation where the I had gotten referred to this group to do that talk, and it was from somebody that just loved it. These people hunted me down to find me to make sure I was there at the event. Like this was like I was like this was a no brainer. It was like 600 people.
Yeah.
They loved the talk, so like I didn't spend the same amount of energy I normally do trying to figure out what their problems are because it's like, cool, this they've already matched this up. Like I don't
They
even
know that
really
it's
worry
a
about
fit.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will never do that again. In fact, like I was telling you, like somebody called for next Thursday has a talk, and like I was like, I need to talk to you in the morning for an hour because I want to know everything that your associations and your organization is dealing with. Um, because I'm not interested in walking in to help people and be flat. What's the point? You
Mm-hmm.
know, what's the point of just walking in and telling people stuff? Like if there's not an experience, if there's not a connection, and there's not a deep movement that happens that will then spur transformation. Like I've already been there, done that. Like I'm not walking in, you know, and I love that. So that's, we're going to transition now to the moment you've all been waiting for. Hopefully this is good.
Okay.
So here's what it is. Okay. So anytime I have a friend, okay, and you're not the first one to come to me with this, we're a bureau, okay, or someone in the event space says to them, I don't know how to sell you, or I don't know what use you have to the business case. The first thing that happens for me is challenge accepted.
Yep.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to do real quick. And I figured, why not just do it on tape? All right. We got it on tape. We said it. All right. So
I'll just be like, no problem. I actually have a podcast on this with Frankie Russo. Please listen here at minute 48.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Just send them this podcast link. All right. The Love Your Weird podcast. All right. So let's talk about loving your weird, and let's talk about joy, and let's talk about resilience. Okay. What is the point of resilience? Okay. Everybody hates resilient speakers. Got it. What is the point of resilience? Like, what does resilience do for an organization, Jessica?
For me, it's about when you can unlock resiliency, I think you can unlock being the best version of yourself, and you're not stuck in the problems. You're moving into what's possible. And that's where I believe the magic lies, especially from peak performance. I think from like being your most creative, authentic, real, vibrant version. And I think people are trying to play it safe, or they're scared to step into that, or it's just been so hard that people are like in this. I see it, and organizations come to me all the time. Their people are just surviving, and I want to move them into thriving, because that's where I've been able to unlock in my life. I'm like, holy shit, this is epic and good and awesome.
Love it. Okay, so here we go. So first of all, you're talking about moving versions of people into what is possible that's not currently their reality, correct?
Correct.
You want to take them from surviving to thriving.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take them from surviving to thriving, why does that matter to the company?
I think when people are in thrive or in survival mode, they're working and operating at like a 50% capacity, 50% of like what their best version is. Yeah.
All right. I love it. So you're saying that if you unlock joy and you become a resilience mindset, you can turn a version of yourself into another version that's 2 to 3 times what you thought was possible. Yeah. And your output goes to thriving, which creates full capacity for the entire team. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So if everybody's unlocking your framework, everyone's at full capacity. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. If everyone is unlocking at full capacity, what does that do for the company?
Oh, I mean, you're driving better results. I think people are enjoying, like, I go to organizations and you see people just stuck in golden handcuffs. And I think when people like genuinely are pumped to be there, it changes how they show up. So I think it's like you're hitting your quarterly goals, you're hitting your year-end goals. I think you're seeing profitability go through. I think people are working smarter, not necessarily harder, and being more intentional about what they do and how they do it.
Beautiful. So you said profitability. Do you believe that your unlock can lead to revenue growth?
1,000%.
1,000%. Excellent. So let me talk to you about this in a ladder. Have you ever heard of the ladder of abstraction?
Peter Sheehan. I just finished watching that for the second time. If that's what we're talking about, so I'm here.
I have my own version of the ladder.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Give me the name of your talk.
The Roadmap for Resiliency.
Perfect. So we're going to just call that resiliency, and we're going to make that number 4 rung on a 10-rung ladder. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So we're saying that resiliency is an unlock, and you are the master of resiliency. Let's just assume you are the absolute expert in resiliency, and those are the 3 rungs below it, right?
Okay.
Radical acceptance might be the bottom rung.
Yeah.
Right. First rung, radical acceptance. Second rung is the second and third thing that you said, right? So those are your unlocks.
Yeah.
So good. Where speakers and thought leaders get it wrong is right here. We spend all of our energy educating you about the 4 bottom rungs, assuming you understand the rest of the ladder, whether it's bureaus or buyers or companies or humans.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the rest of the ladder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you up 2 rungs to let's call it the 7th rung. Let's see, 5, 6. We're going to call it the 7th rung. Okay. And this might be a 12 thing ladder. It's not an exact science. Right?
Okay.
But let's just say that the 7th rung is what all companies need more than anything else. The company, not the people, not the blah, blah, blah. What does a company need? That is, they need to grow their revenue faster than their expenses.
Mm-hmm.
That is how they become not disrupted. And they need to do that for a sustainable length of time. So there's 2 components to it, right? There's the now. I need to grow my revenue now, and then I need to continue to sustain that, which is not being disrupted by the competitors. That is the number 1 objective of all organizations. Do you agree?
1,000. I mean, you're not profitable. You're not growing your revenue. You're dying, or you're
right. If you're not, so the highest goal of a company is revenue growth. Okay. Below that is this idea of profitability. It's not as high as that. I think where a lot of people miss it is they start pointing to all the statistics of like profitability or all the money you would save if you didn't have employee churn or you didn't have burnout. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's selling resilience, belonging, mattering, innovation, whatever it is. We're all selling these different things, but it's like, what is the point? Why does that matter? And so what I've come to realize is that half of your business is the road to resiliency. The other half of your business is being in the business of an advocate of peak performance. Like, why the fuck does peak performance matter? Why does having a culture of belonging matter? Why does people being at their full capacity matter? What does that do? So you actually have to be an ambassador of the 2 to 3 rungs between the road to resiliency and revenue growth. That is the part that so many people miss. And you really have to spell it out for them. It's like road to resiliency is the secret unlock for peak performance or capacity, right? Let's just assume that.
Yeah.
Or employee engagement, which tied to employee loyalty. But who gives a shit at the stock level, right? The machine is capitalism. That is the God that this country prays to, okay? And so that machine doesn't give 2 flying fucks, excuse my language, about resiliency, capacity, belonging, none of that. They're checking these boxes. Why? Because they believe they have to get people to continue to do something. Why? To get revenue growth. Now, it might sound sick. It might sound sadistic. I might sound like the biggest asshole this side of the Mississippi, but it's the facts. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that we actually have found an unlock that actually makes your people feel fulfilled, makes your people have full capacity. You get your sick money machine fed while people actually love what they do. We are here because we have an unlock that can show you a different way that gives you what you want, which, don't make any bones about it, is revenue growth at an exponential rate. No company signs up to be a company for any other reason. Otherwise, they'd be a nonprofit. Okay.
Which is,
they're a company, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. That's all good too. And with our exponential growth, we'll write you a check. But at the end of the day, companies, that's what they want. Like, so let's not fool ourselves. And so we have to be an ambassador for those other rungs, meaning like you literally have to do what seems obvious. Like, I'm in innovation, right? And my unlock is right below innovation with Love Your Weird and all the things that create a culture of continuous innovation. I was assuming for a long time, everybody knows innovation is one of the fastest way to create revenue growth. I did it. I've created 60x revenue growth. That wasn't profitability. I created that in 3 years. That was revenue growth. It was innovation. Everybody knows that, right? No, everybody doesn't know that. Not everybody knows that. You can't assume that people know that if you have peak performance, full capacity, and engaged employees, that revenue growth happens. Don't assume that. We have to be in the business of being ambassadors for those rungs just as much as we are for Road to Resilience, Love Your Weird, continuous innovation, all of that. That's the part that so many people miss. And let me tell you what the secret is here. Because above revenue growth is what? Wealth. Above wealth is success. Above success is freedom. Above freedom is limitlessness. Above limitlessness is God. That's why they want it. So, by the way, the bottom of my rung is the 5-year-old Jessica, the 5-year-old Frankie. That is the bottom rung of mine. So my work goes from a 5-year-old self to limitlessness. And everything in between is the God that everybody else serves. Capitalism.
I'm taking notes. I'm recording. I'm just like, what just happened? Frankie, I got a new website coming out March 1st, and I'm like, well, shit. Some of this has to live on
Yes.
the damn
If
website.
it makes you feel any better, I put out a website in December and I'm already in a rebrand in January. So it's just get used to it. Just buckle up, boo boo. It's that's why I called your joy thing a tsunami. Because forget about it. It's going to get demolished. And so here's what people miss. Okay. Because I work in disruption.
Yeah.
I work in that space. I work in the space where I am creating a world where no one is left behind. That's my calling. I want to create a world where people can augment for a future where no one's left behind. That's my calling, right? And so I think about these things a lot. And the fact is that if you think about organizations that have been disrupted, right? Some of your favorites, Blockbuster. Remember, were you young enough to rewind tapes?
I did a whole thing when I was selling software and we were moving to the cloud, and I did this incredible presentation for this massive global company about how, Blockbuster, why it died and why we're moving to the cloud and why Blockbuster should have. Anyways, I am here for it. And I thoroughly enjoyed going to get my VHSs and right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mini disc, CD players, Blockbuster, Kodak, whatever. Here's the thing. Those companies were saving tons of money. Those companies were probably had a perfect profit margin. They were saving tons of money and they had been winning forever. So saving money, being profitable is not going to keep you from being disrupted. That's the part that people keep missing. You can't save your way out of disruption. And by the time you use the savings, it's too late. What we're unlocking is freedom. We're unlocking limitlessness, which is the biggest piece of what it takes to not be disrupted. Offense is the best defense.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot play defense the whole friggin' game and win. You can't. Somebody's going to kick a field goal. I don't care how good your defense is. Somehow, somewhere, some quarter, somebody is going to get through. Offense is the best defense, period.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to get out of this mindset of, think of the trillions of dollars being wasted on blah, 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 blah. Shut the fuck up and talk to me about the gazillions of dollars that we're going to create when we unlock this culture of max capacity that no one thought was possible. You are not a resilient speaker. You are a speaker that unlocks the limitless on the way to revenue growth and everything else the company is looking for. You are not a resilient speaker. Resiliency is just part of your story.
Yeah.
Do you have to be resilient to augment for a future where no one's left behind? You're goddamn right you do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you're a resilient speaker. Who the fuck isn't? That's why they keep telling you that. They're like, I'm so tired of resilient speakers. That's because we're all resilient speakers. Go deeper. Mm-hmm. You're more than that. You are more than that. You are a speaker that unlocks limitlessness.
Well, shit, Frankie, you just reframed a whole bunch of work that I'm doing in February. I was like, motherfucker, I got to roll.
There we go.
Holy. And you know what? Can I just say this is so timely. I'm doing a virtual keynote right after this in a couple hours. And it's all about wellness. And this group had gotten burnt last year real bad. And so they're very gun shy and talking about like making sure that you deliver. But it's on this piece of like, and I truly believe we cannot always change our circumstances, but we always have a choice on what we choose. I did not choose having my son with a death sentence. I would not choose that. It is what it is, but I did get a choice in how I respond and how I show up and what happens next. Yeah. And that's what I want to unlock for other people is knowing that you do not have to be stuck in the problem, that you can go to what's possible. And I believe anything is possible. Like dream big.
Well, and first of all, absolutely. But it starts by reframing failure. Like all of my keynotes start the same way. After I get done with the intro, I call it Get Honest. And it's about why am I wearing masks? Why am I not showing up? It's because I'm afraid that I'm going to get hurt again. I'm afraid, so I'm playing small, right? But when we reframe failure as just part of the experimental process, everybody wants to create this amazing growth. That only happens with a novel thing happening. Right? What is sales? Sales is a conversation where you're talking about the value of this incredible story of what we've unlocked, right? That's all it is. That's why innovation and sales and blah, blah, blah. It's because we need something new to talk about, right? People love to talk about new things. You
Mm.
can't create something new when you're so stuck in the old. That's why what you do is unlock new things. You unlock novel. That's what you do. It's more than these other pieces, right? And do you do all those other pieces? Yeah, of course you do. But why do you do it? And what does it matter to them? We have to spell that out. We have to spell that out for them so that they understand what is this? This is more than just a feel great after this meeting, or like we feel motivated. That's beautiful. But like, where are we going with this long term? And why does this have to be part of our continuous innovation? And it's because the fact is that when you start to realize that failure is just part of the process, that it's the experimental process.
Mm.
Nobody created anything great unless they failed like a billion times and they just figured out a way to reframe it.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it, but like what happens to us, including all the things we talked about today, they do happen for a reason. And some people get all jaded with that. They're like, well, why would there be a God that would let your kid die?
Mm.
And we don't know the exact answer to that. But what we do know is that with it, you have created a calling.
Mm.
And think about the 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, 1,000,000 people that you're helping as a result of that. Did that have to happen for this calling? I don't know. But here we are. And it's sad. It's horrible. And sad and horrible things happen in this world that we don't understand. But when you think about time from a limitless standpoint and this world outside of this third dimensional prison that we live in, that's when it starts to change. Like the fact that your son is not dead.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not in this third dimension world. And I'm taking a lot of liberty by saying that because, easy for me to say. But I think somewhere deep inside, it's true that he is alive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, that's why I have a hope in heaven, and I have so much peace in that. Like, I know he's not suffering, and I've done a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of coaching, a lot of that in that. But it is just a reframe and being at peace that he's no longer here in suffering. And I mean, he shows up for me all the damn time. When I want to quit and you're just like, what the fuck? Why am I doing this? Why is this so hard? Yep. And I shared this story in another podcast I recorded. It's like, so our song, we danced with him every day in the hospital. I was like, can't leave the hospital and need the doctors, need the nurses, need the oxygen. So we're going to choose like to bring the joy. That's why my book is called Bring the Joy. It's like, if we can do this and this hard thing, you can bring the joy to anything. I believe joy and death can coexist. I believe it can be in the good and in the bad. And so we had finished our golf tournament. I'm driving home. It's almost midnight. I have this U-Haul that's like, I got a crank window. The mirrors are busted. It's disgusting and dirty. And I'm just like, I just want to be at home. I have nothing left in my tank. And I don't know why I go to turn on the radio, and I rarely listen to the radio. I go to turn on the radio, driving down this road called Crowchild, and Can't Stop the Feeling comes on at almost midnight. And I didn't choose the station, just was there. And I mean, those are the moments that I hold on to of being keep going. And I think if we pay attention to the good stuff, to those moments, like that's where you find the momentum. That's where you're like, and I think we're just on blinders and we're just like, and we're looking for the evidence of why it's not working. And that's why I'm so passionate.
The pain forces us to look in a way that like happiness doesn't. Happiness winning doesn't teach us. Pain does, but it's not meant to live in pain. It's meant to learn from it. And desperation and pain and fear and shame and all the stuff that we talk about is part of it, but that doesn't mean we have to live there. And it's how you reframe it and how you use it to help others. Because essentially that's what it boils down to. Like, what am I doing to help others? And that's where the gold is. That's the only thing that makes this world worth it, because it's a heavy gravitational pull. Yeah. This world is heavy. This dimension is heavy. And we weren't born for this dimension, at least not in this gravitational condition. That's why limitlessness and freedom is from such a young age. I mean, for me, it's always been like a fascination, and I've found ways to unlock this dimension, and that's the work we do.
Okay, answer me this, because this is the one part that I want to make sure I close the loop on and get clarity. you talked about this ladder and this rung, and you're like, no, resiliency speaker, and beers are like, meh, meh, you know, like, okay, there's a million of you out there, and you're like, no, give them what you really do, and
That's
give
right.
them that goodness, which I found so much clarity in this. But you said the bottom of the ladder is the 5-year-old Jessica or the 5-year-old Frankie. Walk me through that spot from 5-year-old Jess up until that point where you then are like, this is, you know what I mean? I'm just like, tie that together for me.
Okay. So the reason the 5-year-old, so the 5-year-old is not necessarily the bottom of your ladder. It's the bottom of my ladder, but it's pretty much the bottom of everybody's ladder. So what is important about 5, 6-year-old Jessica? It's the version of you before you started to change because you thought you were supposed to. It's the version of you that had a genius level of imagination. It's the version of you that believed in your heart and your being and all parts of you that there was an abundance to this world, and it wasn't a scarcity nightmare. It was before all that. That version of you is the closest thing to your original DNA coding. That is your weird. It's the weird kid you were before people told you to be something different. Love your weird is loving that kid and then actually showing up with that kid. So unlocking and getting in touch with the child within is the quickest, best way to get to what you are authentically, who you are authentically, what were you born to actually do? What did you come here to do in this dimension? 2, how to go from being this adult that feels like they're not an imaginative person, hasn't used their imagination, and as long as they can remember, to reframing that like you're actually imaginative at a genius level. You've just unlearned it. You've forgotten.
Yeah.
Which your 5-year-old did not. And then the generosity. How many kids want to play by themselves? Kids don't want to play by themselves. And yet here we are, always playing by ourselves, lacking imagination, living in rigor, worshiping status quo, and not authentic, wearing masks because we're too afraid of what will happen if I take it off and you know who I really am. But when you show up to all of that as your 5-year-old and the whole organization showing up as that, look the fuck out.
Okay, answer me this question. Now I wish I had my own podcast and I was interviewing you this. In an organization, why is it that we dampen people and try to put them in fucking boxes? This is why I left corporate America. And I was at a massive global software company, and the guy at the top who was managing Western Canada at the time could not stand me. And it was because I approached every problem different. I'm neurodivergent, ADHD, I'm probably an undiagnosed dyslexic. The way that I come to know things, learn things is not a traditional path. And I legit kept feeling pushed out where I was like, I could actually be your fucking secret weapon if you let me and you have belief. He didn't have belief in me. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give other people is belief in themselves, because we'll dampen it, forget it.
And what does that belief look like? Trust.
Totally. And he didn't have trust. Yeah. 100%.
No, he didn't trust you. And so what's interesting is that, like, so why you asked why?
Yeah.
Why do companies do that?
Yeah.
Mostly out of necessity. Most companies do it out of necessity. It's something that rots from the head down, and it's out of a culture of fear. Okay. When you have a culture of fear, you can still get the top line objective. That one rung in the ladder can be achieved, but not without a carcasses everywhere, graveyard of burnout. What organizational leaders that have built great companies, not good companies, great companies, were the ones that realized that you can have both. In fact, that's how you make it sustainable. Because it's not just revenue growth, it's sustainable revenue growth or continuous innovation. Those are the pieces that make this so important, is because the truth is, most people think you have to pick. You're either this feel-good kind of company where there's a good culture and we're a nonprofit, or we don't make money, or we make money, we hustle, we're sales-driven, and that's all that fucking matters.
Yeah.
The truth is that the companies that are able to sustain that survive disruption are the companies that have figured out a way to do both, because that's the secret unlock. That's what I'm telling you. That's the part that, like, now, for those who will listen, not everybody will listen. Not everybody's ready. Some will, some won't. So what? Some are waiting. Period. That's the good news. The good news is you already know, show me the room I'm supposed to be in. We're not supposed to be in every room. I mean, for God's sakes, our most successful friends are in 80 rooms. Like, that's still not that many. It's like, I don't need to be in every room.
No.
It's good that we're starting to realize that we don't belong in every room. Good for you. I don't belong in your room. Great. You don't probably belong in my room. But here's the thing, like, once there's a way for all people to belong in our rooms, by the way. And that's the work I'm talking about, because we are translators of the truth. You and I know the truth of what can change an organization from the top down, bottom up, every which way to Sunday, right? We know that truth. We have to do the work to translate that for the everyday corporation, the large organizations. It's not the same as doing it for a small and medium business. You know, creating a great culture with 25 people is not the same as 25,000.
Yeah.
It's just not. And people like us, yeah. I mean, they used to call me rogue. My neurodivergent was labeled as rogue in that space.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. You know, and so, but that's what we are. We have to do the hard work of translating this into the capital of the machine that is capitalism. We have to go in, it's like the Hunger Games, you know? We have to infiltrate it with an idea that is the original idea that, did you watch the this prequel thing they came out with?
The latest Hunger Games?
Yeah, like it's the origin story for Snow.
Is it out yet? I thought it wasn't out till February.
It's out.
Oh, it is.
No.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I don't know. You're in Canada, so is everything slower in Canada?
Yes,
I don't know.
it is.
I know mail is.
Yeah.
I know mail to Canada is slower. Geez. But anyway, yes, it's out, at least in America. So anyway, the reason I brought it up is that the very thing that created the Hunger Games and created this machine that everyone is operating off now comes from good intentions. But as we know, good intentions pave the road to hell.
Wow.
Highway to hell, baby. All right, so there you go. There's our podcast. That was a little different, definitely longer than normal, but that doesn't surprise me. The legend Jessica Janzen, not going to do it small, not going to do it short, that's for sure.
No, buckle up. I do it. You know what? That's been one of the biggest blessings for me is like, I do it how I do it. And if it doesn't work for other people, I mean, 8 billion people on the planet, they don't all got to love me. I just got to find my people.
No,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what? If you had a 51%, I told this somebody the other day, if you had a 51% approval rating, you know what they call that?
No.
President.
There you go.
There you have it, folks.
A job that I would never want because you're never going to make anybody happy.
No, listen, you and me both, sister, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Frankie, thank you for defining my marketing and messaging. I love that this was accomplished on your podcast and we have some clarity with the ladders and the spaces and the things.
That's right.
I just want to encourage people, like, I literally labeled Frankie as a VC douchebag. And then you were heading out to the bathroom and I was like,
how you really feel.
Yeah. I was like, sorry, just wait. Can you just explain this weird, who are you? And I got curious. I did. I was like, and then I think you're like, I really got to go pee. I'm like, no, I really need you to unpack this because I don't get it. And I just want to say, get curious because you just never know where curiosity will lead. And I think that has become one of my superpowers is like my brain's default is to go to judgment and I'm retraining my brain to go to curiosity and just to be like open to like what the hell is possible. That's a superpower that can unlock limitless right there. It's like curiosity over judgment. And so I was really curious. I was like, I have no idea where this is going to go, how it's going to roll, but I just knew that like you have something special to offer and I'm grateful. I got to be there when you were undoing your website in December and it was so neat to just see your excitement for what you do. And I hope more people become passionate and excited and pumped and have this deep-seated belief that what they do matters.
Beautiful. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We're going to be friends for a long time because usually when people label me as that and then are curious enough to find out the reality, we usually are friends for a very long time. So my best friendships usually start like that.
Well,
So
also
good
in your
deal.
book,
And
because I read the damn thing, you said that if you needed a mentor or help, you're like, reach out, I'm here. I was like, I'm gonna fucking like send him a message and be like, Frankie, I want you in my
yes,
career. And I was like, does he actually mean it? I'm like, I'm gonna test this
yeah,
theory.
I actually mean it. Yeah, I didn't just write that crap. What's the point? Yeah,
Well,
you got me.
great.
Today was session one. I'm in your corner. I believe in what you're doing, and I know how much bigger it is than what they're perceiving it to be. And I want to help you make sure that doesn't get in the way of the people that you're called to help. And
Thank
that's where
you.
we're at today.
Let's
I
fucking
love it. All
go.
right. Well, guys, gals, everybody, in between, we got Jessica Janzen with a Z.ca is the website. So don't expect to remember that. Just make sure when you Google Jessica, you put a Z in her name. Janzen.
He put an
Okay.
S.
There's a
That's why
Z. I
he's
did
being
the
really
S and
clear on that. Yeah.
yeah, I did the S before, and it was like, that's not her. Or what? I got catfished.
Yeah.
No, it's a Z. That way you don't feel catfished. But anyway, this was amazing. Thanks again, Jessica. And for everyone who's been listening and tuning in, thank you again for being with us. And until next time, this has been the School of Weird.